K to 3. They rotate around. I have most of my classes in the morning and one in the afternoon. This is only about the first year in this program. Otherwise, I've worked before at White Swan, and also I worked for daycare once. Most of the time the language was orally taught, and just this past year we have used this book. We start the language with numbers because we thought the numbers is the thing that we first were taught when we were growing up.
Now you look up at me and tell me the answer to the question. Don't turn the pages on the book because that causes a flash in your glasses and I can see in your glasses. If you would, just tell me what you do in a normal program, in the normal period that you have the children in the Yakima language.
Just, you mean what I do when I first go in the morning?
Yeah, when you first go in the morning and the kids come in, and what kinds of things do you do?
When I first go to my work in the morning, I have...
Say that to me one more time because I bumped the camera. That's my fault. Okay. All right.
You're just trying to make it difficult.
No, hold on just a second. I want to get a good. Okay. When you first go in the morning.
When I first go in the morning, I have my third graders. And I only have them for about a half an hour at a time, teaching the Yakima Indian language. And the language isn't taught the full half an hour. I only have them for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then we go into what they call the Keys book, which is their reading language book. But when we do turn into the English language book, they kind of get dissatisfied because they would much rather prefer to go on with their Indian language. And it's very difficult for me to teach as I would like to teach the youngsters because I share a room with a certified teacher, and I just have the small portion of the room where I do my Indian language teaching. And we're qualified to teach the language and possibly a song, which we do not do. We don't teach songs to children. In fact, we don't have songs like Old MacDonald and things like that. We don't have any for the children. So there's no singing that I do with them, but they do try to make me sing like two little Indians in Indian language, which we can't even do anyway because it's such a limited space and we can't make too much noise to distract the other students in the same classroom. Then after I have my third grader, then the first graders come in, and we pretty much go around about the same way as I did with my third graders. And then the second graders come in just before lunch. I have the first and the kindergartens do the same lessons because they're about almost the same age category. They just have simple numbers like from 1 to 5 and simple little domestic animals like cat, dog, cow. Then I have the second and the third graders do possibly 6 sentences now they have been going into. And then they have more harder words, just as you do in the English book. They go into different things like the other domestic animals and the non-domestic animals. Then we just go on from there. Then we put the words that I've been teaching them when they were in the first and in the second. Then we just put them words all in together to make sentences, or I make them practice talking to one another, like, what's your name? Is the weather cold outside? or can you open the door, or let's jump, things like that. And they start to learn after they get into the 3rd grade and 2nd. This is practiced through kindergarten and 1st grade.
How do you think the children benefit from, say, the Indian children? How do you think they benefit from learning the Yakima language and learning something about the culture of the tribe and the history of the tribe?
Well, I think that the children are happier now knowing that they can speak their language. And there was even one student that was very proud that when he first came in, he was just a new student. He first came in, he didn't even know how to read the language. He was in the 3rd grade. He didn't even know how to read it, but in 2 weeks' time, he learned very limited words, but he was very proud of himself for being Indian, that he was able to read and understand when being spoken to. Also, culture-wise, some of them are not exposed to different Indian cultures that we have, like we have our first root in the spring, our salmon. Some have not been exposed to it because of this non-Indian world that they've been living in. That's all they've known is get up in the morning, go to school, parents go to work. They never take part in the things that I just mentioned, like war dances or some other activity that the Indians do have. And then when they found out about it, they would like to learn more about it. Even this legend book, which is never supposed to have been told during the summer, is only supposed to be told during the winter season, as now.
Okay. What's the effect of this program on the parents of the children? How do the parents of the children and the grandparents of the children feel about them learning from, say, a school class rather than at home necessarily?
The parents' reaction to this program, I found out, being as I was a home visitor before I started to work at Lincoln. They're all for it because they said they don't have much time with the children at home to be speaking the Indian language to. And some of them that does not have Indian-speaking parents at home, the parents are learning from the children, which I thought was very good. And there was even one parent that came into the classroom and he wanted to know what his little girl was doing. She's in the 2nd grade. I told him that she was doing real good, and he says, for myself, I left the valley when I was very young, and he's a Yakima Indian. Now that he's back, he wants his daughter to learn the language, and possibly that he will learn it from her, just whatever simple little words that she can bring home to him that he will try to remember from what he's forgotten.
What kind of changes can you see in the children, say from when they start into this program, about their attitude about school, about their Anglo friends or their Mexican-American friends? Do you think what does it do for them in terms of their own feeling about themselves to study this sort of thing?
After the children has learned the language, has experienced it through other schools too, they go, especially during the recess, they go out, and those that are taking the Indian language, they will speak to one another, and another one will approach, and they will ask what the word means. Sometimes they get kind of silly about it, though, especially those of them that have Indian language speaking at home. But then they're getting so that they're proud that they can speak the language and pass it on to their next friend, and then the other friend too will like the Spanish language, then they will exchange words. And they think it's very special that they can have this program in school, whereas I didn't ever think myself that it would be possible to have any Indian language in school, because I don't think any children just wants to know the other side of the book all the time and not know their own.
What about the attitudes of the Anglo children toward the Indian children? Do they, I think Mr. Diaz said earlier that they are very curious and very interested in the programs. Are any of them actually involved in the Yakima?
Yes, there's, I think I have 2 in my program, in my Indian language class, and they seem to pick it up pretty good. Also, I've had some experience with the other school too, and we had more than 2 that were non-Indian were taking the class. And all the other things like beadwork and making marks and things that was taught to the non-Indians too in the class. I don't think there's all that much difference in knowing their language from English to Indian, but it is a little bit harder.
Would you like to see this program continued and perhaps expanded in the future?
Yes, I would like to have it continued in other schools in the reservation, because if it just goes from K to 3, then they go past the 3rd grade, then they lose the language again, whether they have Indian-speaking parents or not at home, because it's not spoken. You pretty much have to speak it good part of the day, just as you do your English. You're speaking it all the time, and you can't forget. But it's the same thing with the Indian language. But myself, when I was going to school, I never forgot my Indian language, so I don't think I think maybe it was just too much in my head. But myself, I think that if the program is in schools from K on up to 12th grade, I think it would be real good.
Any other questions? I think that's about it.
Good.
Very nice. And I would like for you to talk directly to me.
Okay. You really want my full title?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm Gail Weaver, Speech, Language, and Child Development Specialist at Project Politicia.
Okay. Would you describe Project Politicia for us in terms of who it serves and what the goals of the project are?
Okay. Project Politicia is a program for handicapped Indian children. We serve children from birth to 8 years of age. Our primary goal is to screen and identify handicapped Indian children, and then to provide educational services for them.
When you say handicapped children, what do you mean?
Our definition of handicapped, well, let me do it another way. Our criteria for enrollment of children in the program is that the children have to fall at least 1 year behind age level. We test children in the areas of cognition, fine motor, gross motor, self-help, socialization, and speech. If a child falls more than 1 year below age level in any of those areas, then he's eligible for enrollment.
What are the goals of Project Politicia, and specifically, we did say who it serves, what are the goals of the project?
What we want to do is bring the children's skill levels up to their age level, so that they will be able to go into another educational setting and succeed.
Okay. How did the program get started, and how is it funded?
This is the 5th year of the program. It was funded for 3 years through the Bureau of Education for Handicapped Children, Title VI monies. Last year, the Bureau of Indian Affairs took over the funding, and they have been funding it since then. The proposal was initially written because no services were being provided for handicapped Indian children.
What is your involvement in the program? What do you do?
My primary responsibilities are to write all of the speech and language programs for the children, and also to supervise the individual programming that the teachers do with the children. All of the children who are enrolled in the program are seen for individual work each day. Programs are done with the children on the specific skill areas where they have difficulties. And we have developed a curriculum over the past 5 years which we use with the children.
But you don't use any culturally related, culturally derived materials?
No. Do you want me to tell you why?
Yeah.
Okay. The reason we don't use any culturally related materials are that the children are so far behind in their skill levels already that we want to bring those skill levels up before we would transfer them into another setting where they would get the cultural component. At the present time, they're having enough difficulty learning, so we don't want to add one more thing for them to learn.
What has been the effect of the program on the people that it serves, both on the children and on the parents of those children?
The children that are enrolled in the program are not only enrolled in the classroom program, they're also enrolled in home programs. Our staff go out to the homes from anywhere from 1 time a week to 1 time a month, depending on how much parent involvement the parents want. This has increased as the project has been in existence. At first, we didn't get very many parents who wanted to do programs with their children in the home. And now we have quite a few parents doing programs within the home. Initially, most of our referrals came from doctors, from social and health services, from outside agencies. Now, almost all of our referrals come from the parents themselves. One parent will hear from another parent about the services their child is getting, and we get most of our referrals through the parents and through the community.
And that's a good indication that the program has been accepted by the Indian community.
Right.
What plans do you have for continuing or expanding the program?
At the present time, we write a proposal each year to obtain the money for the following year. We also get additional supplementary money from the tribe. If we can continue getting funding through the Bureau of Indian Affairs, we will continue with that kind of funding. Otherwise, we will look for additional kinds of funding levels. We're also investigating at the present time coordinating services with the school districts, in which the school districts would actually contract with us to provide services for not only Indian children in the schools, but also non-Indian children.
Very good.
Too long. I have to go to
Are you ready? Sorry, I thought you were in for me. Okay, just tell me that again.
Safe as Roman.
Okay, I'm Elaine Alney. I'm the administrative assistant and bookkeeper for the Yakima Tribal Head Start program. And we have 6 centers on the reservation.
Okay. What are the goals of your program, and who does it serve, basically, in terms of the kinds of kids you serve?
Well, we serve the Yakima people and other Indians on a reservation too. Most of our children are Indian on the reservation, and our goals are education.
Okay. Now, do you use any culturally based or culturally derived materials in your Head Start program? And if you do, could you explain to me a little bit about them and how they're used?
Yes, we do. We have a culture coordinator who works with all our centers, and she, well, we have a carpenter too who works for CSEP, and he makes a lot of our materials, culture materials.
What kinds of things are they?
Well, he makes moccasins and baby boards and just educational materials like that.
How is the program funded, and when did it get started?
Okay, we've been in operation for about 15 years or maybe more, and we're funded by an HEW grant, and the tribal funds half of us too.
What do you think the effect has been on the children that the program serves? It's been a good, you've been in progress 15 years now, so you should be able to look in terms of an evaluation and see whether the children have succeeded in school better.
I think they have, because when they leave our program, they're more confident in themselves, and we know that they do real well in school, better than the ones who weren't in Head Start.
How's the program been accepted by the Indian community?
It's been accepted really well because there's a need for it on the reservation.
And how about, you say you do serve some non-Indian children. Are they non-Indian children who live on the reservation?
Yes, we do have non-Indian children in our programs when, well, when we can take as many Indian kids that are